President Reagan prepares an economic package that will contain significant cuts in taxes and federal programs. I'm your Congressman Paul Simon. Join me and Congressman Jack Kemp, one of the architects of the package, as we discuss these issues next on In Touch.
This is In Touch with Paul Simon, a weekly report from your congressman on the issues that concern you the most. And now, Congressman Paul Simon.
Our guest today is Congressman Jack Kemp from the state of New York. Some of you will remember Jack as the star quarterback for the Buffalo Bills, most valuable player in the AFC back a few years ago. How many years ago now, Jack?
Gosh, 1965, Paul.
1965, all right. Others, you will remember him as, or know him as the author of the Kemp-Roth tax reduction bill. And right now, he's a brand new member of the Budget Committee, and we're pleased to have you on the Budget Committee.
I'm glad to be on it, and glad to be working with you, Paul.
Thank you. Incidentally, we're taping this a few days before it is shown in my district. You have just come from working on a case involving your constituent, Cynthia Dwyer, who is in Iran. You want to comment? And
well, I was just going to say that I hope by the time this show is aired that Cynthia Dwyer has been released by the Iranians. And I'm primarily taking a very low profile on the issue because the State Department and the White House have suggested it would help bring about a resolution of this very difficult case if everybody just kept it out of the headlines. So from that standpoint, I'm looking forward to her early and safe return. And I'm a little bit constrained by the conversation that I had with Secretary of State Haig.
Now, at this point, though, are you hopeful, or is it...
I'm hopeful,
okay.
Very hopeful.
Good. We all hope that things
absolutely
work out on that. One of the areas where you and I have had a lot of discussions on the floor is this whole area of tax cuts. I share, as you know, some of the concerns of the Chairman of the Federal Reserve Board, Paul Volcker, and some others that tax cuts can mean, increased demand, and that could mean increased inflation. I think our listeners would be interested in your response to that.
Well, I don't think that all tax cuts are created equally. There's no doubt that if we just gave rebates to people or $50 checks dropped out of the sky,
as we did a few years ago,
did a Demogrant program such as Senator McGovern suggested in 1972, that wouldn't have much effect on the output side of the economy and the production side of the economy, but it would increase demand. That would be, I think, wrong. But what Kemp-Roth or some version of Kemp-Roth and what Reagan wants to propose is a reduction in the tax on those additional earnings from wages and salaries and savings accounts and entrepreneurship, which we think would modify the behavior of the economy towards boosting output and production, thus would be anti-inflationary if properly constructed. So I don't want to sound like I'm an economist because I'm not, but I do think that people respond to rewards. And if you look at the economy in the last 10 years, the reward for working and saving and investing and being productive as an individual American has been going down rather sharply, not just because of inflation, but because of the impact of inflation on the steeply graduated nature of our income tax system. So frankly, Kemp-Roth only repairs some of the damage that has been done to the American people's incomes by 7 or 8 or 9 years of relentless inflation pushing them into higher tax brackets, and it's hurting the incentive of the American people.
Now, do you anticipate a timeline? In other words, are we going to be increasing deficits for a year or two as a result?
I heard the earlier question about Paul Volcker's conduct of monetary policy. In effect, if monetary policy were stable, which I assume Mr. Volcker wants to try to maintain for a while, and you lowered the tax rate, it would not affect the amount of money in circulation. I think it would be an incentive for more production, but it wouldn't alter the amount of money in circulation. It would mean that people would get more money after taxes to either make a decision to spend or to save, but it would not change the amount of money in circulation, because that money being taxed away from the American people, the citizens of Illinois or New York, is going to be spent by the government. So in effect, taxing the people and their incomes is not fighting inflation today. It's causing deficits to enlarge, and it's slowing down the economy. We need to get the economy growing again and keep the monetary policy stable.
So the Kemp answer is there will be no inflation as a result of this.
I think the tax rates in this country are so high that it's discouraging the ability of the economy to grow, and as the productive economy plunges, as people and enterprise in America diminish in terms of their rewards, the Fed steps up the money creation machine in order to try to stimulate growth, just by pumping up money.
That's historically
and
been
in
what's
effect,
happened,
that's
yeah.
what's inflation. So it seems to me that if we increase the output, if we increase more employment, if we got the economy healthier in terms of the productive private enterprise system, and then stabilize the monetary and fiscal policy of the country, that would be a recipe or an agenda, if you will, for hopefully what I want and you want, full employment and price stability.
We'll get back to more discussions in a moment.
One of a congressman's major duties is to help constituents who are having problems with federal programs, such as Medicare, Black Lung, and Social Security. If you're having a problem with these or other federal programs, I urge you to write, phone, or visit one of my district offices. The people in my Carbondale and West Frankfort offices are trained to help you cut through the red tape that too often surrounds government agencies. Where it's necessary, I'll personally intervene in your behalf. My Carbondale office is located in the Federal Building at 250 West Cherry Street. The phone number is 457-3653. My West Frankfort office is located at 212 West Main Street. The phone number there is 932-2560. My offices are there to serve you. I hope you'll use them.
This week's question from a listener, and we'll be happy to have your comment on it too. Elma Abney from Benton wants to know what I'm doing and what Congress will do to repeal the windfall profits tax for royalty owners and small independent producers. I might add that we have an area that produces quite a bit of oil. We have a lot of coal in our area too. My guess is that we will do something to provide additional relief for the royalty owners. I will be introducing a bill within the next 2 weeks that exempts the royalty owners and also exempts up to 250 barrels a day for the small producer. That is not as much as a lot of people want. A lot of people are talking about 1,000 barrels. I frankly don't think we can get a 1,000-barrel exemption. It was approved by the House last time but rejected overwhelmingly by the Senate. I don't know what your feeling may be here, Jack, where we're going.
Well, I told the people of Buffalo, New York, who are consumers of oil and gas, that the thing we most needed in this country was more production, more supply, more energy, and that the land use policy of the country, the tax policy of the country, and the sharp decline in the purchasing power of the U.S. dollar has done more to raise the price of energy and discourage production and exploration than anything that I could think of in the last 10 years, unfortunately under a couple of Republican presidents as well. So frankly, I didn't vote for the windfall profit tax in the first place because it was not a tax on anything but the production of oil that we desperately need in the Northeast. It also raises the cost of home heating oil in the Northeast, and frankly, the Sun Belt gets another subsidy from the U.S. Treasury because as we tax the use, and it's an excise tax, unfortunately, as we tax home heating oil, and the Sun Belt has natural gas in abundance, we're further raising the cost of living in the Northeast and lowering it in comparison for the Sun Belt. So I think the tax was a mistake in the first place. I would support the Simon bill and appreciate what you're doing, but I would go beyond that and ultimately try to phase out the whole windfall profit tax because it's a mistake.
But realistically, that isn't going to happen.
Well, then I would exempt independents. We want more wildcatting, more independent production of energy.
Yeah.
And frankly, the people who provide about 90% of all the new wells and provide 50 or 60% of all the new production and supply of energy are the independents.
Are the wildcatters. You're absolutely right.
I don't want to start a war between majors and the small guy, but it seems to me the independent, wildcatting, entrepreneurial men and women of this country are the ones who've been neglected for a long time, the small businessman or woman, the small farmers, and the windfall profit tax, make no mistake about it as far as I'm concerned, is a tax that is not a tax on profits at all. It's a tax on sales. It's a tax on production. It's going to further, I believe, add to imported oil from abroad, and that's a mistake. But I agree with you. It isn't going to be done tomorrow. I'd like to see it done tomorrow.
Yeah, but the president.
But I'll support the Simon bill.
All right.
If you'll start to look at the Kemp-Roth bill with a little less of a jaundiced eye,
well, I
more
have some
sympathy
serious
for those poor, hardworking Buffalo citizens who haven't had a. Listen to this. Excuse me for interjecting.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
The people of Buffalo, New York, average factory workers' wages are lower today in purchasing power after taxes than they were in 1965. I don't know what Illinois is like. Maybe your people want their taxes raised. But my folks are literally being strangled by a tax system that is punishing their earnings and their savings. And I think those rates need to come down. And if you call it the Simon bill, I'll support it. But we got to bring those rates down.
All right. I know of no one who wants taxes raised. I think
but they're going up, aren't they?
Yeah, they are going up. And the concern on the part of all of us is, how do we get a hold of this thing? How do we, without having greater inflation?
Well, inflation is caused not only by an irresponsible expansion of the money supply, it's also caused by a diminution of output and production and goods and services and jobs. So we need to bring an equilibrium about in the money, fiscal, tax, and regulatory system. And it seems to me if we don't cut rates, they're going to continue to climb to where it won't be even rewarding to save.
And one of the areas where you and I do agree, and we disagree in some areas, is that unemployment is not the way to bring about deflation or grinding a halt to this inflation.
To me, unemployment is inflationary because it reduces the potential of people to contribute not only to their own economic lives, but to the economic life of our nation. We need more jobs, more employment, more production, more output, but we also need to stabilize the monetary policy of this country. And I would prefer, Paul, someday going back to a convertible dollar. I don't think we'll ever stop inflation until the dollar is fixed by the United States government.
With the price of gold?
Gold or silver or...
I'm a little concerned about gold because you're talking about the Soviet Union and South Africa as the two large suppliers of gold.
Well, very frankly, all we've done is raise the price of and raise the value of South Africa and Russia's gold holdings. It wasn't until Nixon devalued the dollar twice and suspended the convertibility of the U.S. dollar by closing the gold window in 1971 that we've seen such a rise in the price and value of gold. So that's helped South Africa and Soviet Russia.
Unfortunately, we're going to have to continue this discussion on some other occasion. It's great to be with you. Jack Kemp is clearly one of the leaders in the House of Representatives on the Republican side. It's a pleasure to have him visiting with us here in Southern Illinois. We hope you'll join us again next week for another edition of In Touch.
This has been In Touch with Paul Simon, a weekly report from your congressman on the issues that concern you the most, presented as a public service by this station. If you would like Congressman Simon to answer one of your questions on the show, send your question and your name and address to In Touch, Congressman Paul Simon, 227 Cannon House Office Building, Washington, D.C., 20515.